Welcome everyone to this week's segment of Ryan and Verbov News. First, we have to apologize for uploading this video a day late. We were both very busy with our college courses. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started with the weather forecast from Verbov.
Hello, and welcome back to the weather forecast for next week here in Wilmington. Starting off tomorrow on Saturday the 25th is expected to be a rainy day, with light drizzle moving in early, and it will likely become steadier and more intense through the afternoon and going into the evening. Temperatures will be noticeably cooler with highs in the mid-50s and lows in the 40s. Sunday will also continue with this weather pattern, with rain expected to be on and off with skies clearing that night. Sunny skies will return tomorrow on Monday with highs reaching the 60s. Tuesday will mostly continue this, but with clouds and possible showers manifesting later that day. Going into Wednesday, it'll be mostly cloudy with some lingering showers, but temperatures will remain in the high 50s to the low 60s, with Thursday continuing this trend with partly cloudy skies with a slight chance of a passing shower. And finally on Friday, conditions are expected to be clear and sunny once again, with temperatures remaining fairly constant throughout. Overall, we are expecting to see a wet and chilly weekend, a bright and warmer Monday, then a mix of clouds and occasional showers through midweek before things settle down again by Friday. Now let's tune into the next segment to see what Ryan has to say.
Thank you for the weather update, Verbov. The weather here in Wilmington has been quite interesting with periods of colder and warmer weather here and there. Anyways, welcome everyone to this week's architecture news segment of Ryan and Verbov News. Last week, we talked about New York City and its numerous skyscrapers that have either recently completed construction and some that are about to begin construction. Today, we'll take a look at the United States' other city known for its skyscrapers, and that is Chicago. Despite being the third largest city in the U.S., Chicago has the second largest skyline in the U.S. behind only New York City, with almost 140 skyscrapers. Now, Chicago hasn't had quite the recent skyscraper boom that New York City has had, but there have still been some noteworthy projects that are worth taking a look at. First, let's start with some skyscrapers that were completed since the last time we aired, starting with the St. Regis Chicago, originally known as the Vista Tower. Designed by the architect Jean Gang, it is actually the world's tallest building designed by a woman. St. Regis Chicago rises 1,191 feet or 362.9 meters tall, with 101 floors of mixed-use space. St. Regis was completed back in 2020. Next, we move a little north onto State Street near the Chicago State L station, and we arrive at the site of One Chicago, a two-tower complex with the taller of the two rising to a height of 971 feet or 295.8 meters tall, with 77 floors of residential space. It was completed in 2022 and became the tallest all-residential building in Chicago and in the United States outside of New York City. The final recently completed skyscraper we'll take a look at is 1000M, located on Michigan Avenue closer towards the southern end of Grant Park. This building rises 788 feet or 240.2 meters tall, contains 70 floors of residential space, and was completed in 2024. Now, let's take a look at the current tallest skyscraper under construction in Chicago and the current tallest proposed skyscraper in Chicago. Starting with the current tallest under construction skyscraper, and that is the North Tower at 400 Lakeshore Drive. The structure recently topped out at 851 feet or 259.3 meters tall and will feature 72 floors of residential space upon completion. The building is expected to be fully completed and open its doors next year in 2027. And lastly, the current tallest proposed skyscraper in Chicago. That would be the Tribune East Tower. Set to rise just east of the famous Gothic-style Tribune Tower skyscraper, Tribune East Tower is planned to soar to a height of 1,442 feet, or 440 meters tall, with 113 floors of mixed-use space. The skyscraper was approved by the City Council back in 2020, with a planned completion date of 2027. However, the skyscraper appears to currently be on hold as looking at the site in 2026, there has not been any construction activity. And that unfortunately seems to be a recent trend with Chicago, as 400 Lakeshore Drive is currently the only tall skyscraper currently under construction, and there are not any other tall skyscrapers planning to begin construction soon as of the time of this recording. Hopefully, Chicago can see the construction of more super tall skyscrapers soon, because while it was the birthplace of the skyscraper, it has fallen a little behind on the world stage in skyscraper construction, and even New York City has been building a lot more recently. However, all cities go through periods of construction booms and plateaus, so perhaps Chicago is in a bit more of a plateau right now compared to other cities, but perhaps it will break out of it someday. That being said, there is a decent amount of low and mid-rise infill developments going on in places like the South Loop and Fulton Market, so it's not like Chicago's development scene is completely dead. There just aren't many tall skyscrapers currently under construction here that us skyscraper nerds like to geek over. Anyways, that's going to cover this week's architecture news segment. Now let's check in with Vabav to see what he has to say.
Welcome back to the political segment. Since our last broadcast, a number of major developments have unfolded, and today we're doing a quick rundown of some of the key political updates from the past week and this week so far. We begin with significant changes in the U.S. House of Representatives. On April 14th, Democrat Eric Swalwell of California's 14th District and Republican Tony Gonzalez of Texas's 23rd District both resigned following allegations of sexual misconduct. A week later, on April 21st, Democrat Sheila Cherfilis McCormick of Florida's 20th District also resigned after the House Ethics Committee and a federal grand jury found she had committed financial fraud. And on April 22nd, Democrat David Scott passed away at the age of 80 after representing Georgia's 13th District since 2003. All 4 seats are now vacant, and each state will hold special elections or primaries to determine their successors, as required under federal law. Staying with congressional districts, we also have an update out of Virginia. On April 21st, voters narrowly approved a referendum to temporarily adopt a new congressional map that would favor Democrats, passing with a 51 to 49% margin. But shortly after the vote, a Tazewell County judge blocked certification, ruling that the referendum violated multiple state laws. Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones has announced an appeal, and the case is now headed to the Virginia Supreme Court. Until the court rules, the future of Virginia's redistricting remains uncertain. We also have some updates from Europe. Recently, French President Emmanuel Macron has made an official announcement stating he would not return to politics after his presidential term ends next year in 2027, partially due to historically low popularity. As such, its presidential race has tightened, with immigration and economic recovery dominating the agenda. In Ukraine, with the war there continuing to rage on, Russia's defense ministry recently claimed it has regained full control of the Luhansk region in the east, though Ukraine continues to dispute that. Meanwhile, the European Union had approved a $106 billion support package for Ukraine, with a significant portion directed towards military assistance. In the Middle East, tensions and conflicts have escalated sharply. With no agreement or ceasefire in sight, strikes across the region have continued, and the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz has deepened, leaving oil and gas shipping routes uncertain. The U.S. Navy Secretary, John Phelan, was removed from his position as the American naval blockade against the IRGC continued, and the United States has deployed additional forces to the region while requesting further support from its allies. The conflict between Israel and Lebanon has also intensified, with Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon targeting Hezbollah officials and injuring dozens. For now, the situation across the Middle East remains volatile, and its trajectory is still unclear. That's all for this week's political segment of Ryan and Vabav News. Stay safe and stay informed, and as always, thanks for tuning in.
It is now time for 10-second trivia. Which language has the most speakers worldwide? Is it A, Mandarin, B, Hindi, C, English, or D, Spanish? You have 10 seconds to answer. If you said C, English, you are correct. As of the current recording of this video, an estimated 1.4, almost 1.5 billion people around the world can speak English fluently. Mandarin comes in at a close second with over 1.1 billion worldwide speakers. Hindi actually ranks third with 611 million worldwide speakers, and Spanish ranks fourth with 561 million worldwide speakers. Quite interesting to know that I speak the world's most spoken language, although I absolutely would love to learn some other languages around the world as well. And that's going to conclude it for this week's episode of Ryan and Vabav News. We want to thank you very much for watching this, and hope that you'll like and subscribe so you can stay tuned for future episodes for when they air each week. Thanks a lot for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.